Hello, welcome to my channel. I'm Tiffany, a retired librarian turned homeschool mom. And in this video, we're going to be looking at this rather hefty book. So this is Josephine. The words are by Patricia, Hruby, Powell, and the pictures are by Christian Robinson. It is a Coretta Scott King honor award book. So that's awarded to books that are honored for being part of the African American community. This book is apparently important. It's also has an honor book for the Robert F. Seibert Award, which is given to children's nonfiction. So for the year, I'll give you the publication year just because I'm giving awards here. You can look these up. So this came out in 2014. So this book specifically is, the full title is Josephine, The Dazzling Life of Josephine Baker. So Josephine Baker was a performer, singing and dancing mostly. And this book is kind of interesting. So it gives a little bit of information. It also gives various quotes, like this one that starts, I shall dance all my life. I would like to die, breathless, spent at the end of a dance. That was said by Josephine Baker in 1927. So, and that is the beginning of the book. And so the beginning, it goes in a couple different sections. So we start off in the beginning. This is 1906 to 1917. So this kind of talks about her childhood. So I'm giving some, so how her mother basically scrubbed floors. They were living in mass poverty during the golden age of music, and how she would prefer to be dancing. So you have the illustrations here. And her mother called her Trumpy, just because I think she had a big head. So she loved to dance. So they had 4 kids. They slept in one bed. They all slept in one bed. Daddy and Mama had one way, 4 kids together. So she has 3 with newspapers covering the window. So she was the oldest of 4. And they were massively poor. So they lived in poverty for many years. And then leaving with the show. So this is 1917 to 1921. She was a young teenager. There were race riots. This goes over her life. And it's very poetic in the way it's written. So it's written in some of the poetry of the Harlem Renaissance. And that's kind of fitting for her. So, and she loved to dance. And she did laundry for white people. She babysat. She did what she could to take care of her family. And then she went to the Booker T. Washington Theater, which was a Negro theater. It talks very much about segregation. She joined the Jones family, a ragtag trio, dancing and playing in the streets. And she played the trombone, and she danced, and she sang. And then she joined the Dixie Steppers, a pair of dancer women who were performing, and she hid away and she went with them. And she wanted to conquer the world. So they played in different, basically colored handouts. And then they were like, they didn't want her to come along because she was very, very good. So, but it's like, stay here, because they met up with the Joneses in New Orleans. But she decided to hide away and join them. But eventually, she danced on stage, she sang, she begged the director, Bob Russell, to dance on stage. She eventually got, but they thought she was too light. So she was too light-skinned for the blacks, and obviously too black for the whites. So she danced on stage after stage, and she shook her body. Again, this is the 1920s, so this is the ragtime era. And now my face isn't made for sleeping. 1921 to 1925. So she ends up in Philadelphia. She was 15. The woman she was dancing with decided to disperse. She got married to a porter by the name of Willie Baker. Thus, she became Josephine Baker. But she went to Broadway. She went to New York and ended up, she slept on the street the first night, and she ended up in the chorus line. And she, actually, no, she didn't get in, and but she became a dresser, which is what she kind of had been for the other sisters. She would help the actresses get dressed. Now, there are not a huge amount of pictures here, so this is just words. It's very, again, very poetic. And eventually one woman didn't show up one night, and she got put in. And she basically made people laugh. And so she started dancing in various different clubs. That's the cat. Until eventually we move into 1925 to 1936. My first time in my life, I felt beautiful. This is when she went with a troupe to France. And it shows kind of the ship. The white people are on top. The black people are on the bottom. And then they get to Paris, the city of light. And they're treated as equals in France. So there's not segregation in France. So she fell in love and she became famous in Europe. So she danced, she sang, and she became wealthy when she became a headliner in France. And she walked down the street with a diamond collar and a diamond cheetah, or a diamond colored cheetah. So, and she went to Austria. They called her a devil, so she came out singing like an angel. And then France made me what I am. So this is 1936 to 1947. She goes back to America, but they didn't care. She still had to enter the back, so she became back door, so she became a stunt pilot. And she got married. But he wanted her to stay home, and she's like, yep, nope, not happening. So she went back to Paris, and this is during the war. So she became a spy. She used her position as an entertainer to spy, and she flirted, and she eavesdropped on Nazi officials, and eventually she got sick, and they thought she was dead, but she got better, and she spent time with the troops, lived like the troops, in order to sing to the Navy, in order to the troops. And then 1947 to 1975. So this is her later life. She married Joe Bouillon, her orchestra leader. They adopted children from all over. And she lived in a big house. But she couldn't bring in the money. And she lived beyond her means, and slowly she started sold off. She sold off. They got kicked out. They were on the streets. And she was living off the generation of friends and fans like the Princess of Monaco, we're talking about Princess Grace. But she was old. So she finally got, at 67, she booked a performance at Carnegie Hall. And they loved her. And they cheered. And she did a tour in the United States. And she danced. Remember, she's 67. And she had a massive return. But she was tired. She was ready to go on to the next cabaret. So, after an opening celebration of Josephine, she was up half the night partying. Victory was too sweet. She was ready to go to the next cabaret. No one would join her. So her cast took her home to bed. She went to sleep and she never woke up. So, she died. But Paris gave her a massive funeral. So, it's an interesting book. She was born on June 3rd, 1906 in St. Louis, Missouri. And then, let's see, when did she die? Yeah, she died on April 12th, 1975. I'm assuming in France. Yeah. So this is a very interesting book. Again, it's very poetic. It tells her story very simply. More in a almost jazz style writing. That's the reason it says the words by, is because it's a very interesting book. There's a lot of pages, but there's not a lot of words. I mean, this is a decent sized book. I don't know, how many pages is this book? Give me number of pages. It does give citations in the back. No, it does not give me page numbers. But as you can see, this is a decent sized book. It's very heavy. It's decently heavy. It could be that I took an exercise class this morning. My arms are jelly still. But again, it's a really fun book. Definitely for the elementary school. I mean, obviously there's great art. Otherwise, they wouldn't have won this Robert F. Serbert Award with great information. Again, there is citations in the back, so it gives you further information. It talks about both the author and the illustrator. So I believe both of them were African American. Yeah, there's quotation and further reading. So in the back of the book, which is always great when you're dealing with a book that's very much an introduction. Because again, this doesn't go into great detail, but it gives you an idea of what Josephine Baker's life was like. It talks about the segregation, talks about what she did. It shows kind of how she danced. And it's a really fantastic children's book. This is definitely elementary level. It also has great poetry to it. Like I said, that's kind of how it's written. It's very much, and let's see if I can pull up some of it. I'll read some of it. And of course, there's a lot of quotes to it. Let me see if I can find something short from the book here that I can read to kind of give you an idea of how it's written. There are small words. I mean, there's a decent amount of writing in this, but there's also short things. Let's see. Okay, so this is a little bit smaller. I'll read this. Josephine strutted out her hip, flirted and grinned and stole the spotlight from Eva, the star. The audience howled. Eva, the chorus, the director, all raged to Josephine, but the reviews raise a born comic. It's impossible to take your eyes off the little cross-eyed girl. So this is when she's still a teenager. So, and this is the picture that goes with it. So, basically, this is when she was on Broadway. So that's kind of how it's written. It's very simple prose. So, and it's a very interesting way to experience Josephine Baker's life. And very much, as I said, it's an introduction. Cat, I will let you in a minute. Calico is meowing at the door. So, fantastic book. Definitely a great introduction. Because, again, there's further reading. There's also the references in the back of the book. So, it's obviously well-renowned, considering there's 2 awards here, one for information and one representing the African-American community. Hi, Cat. I cannot pick you up right now. You want to come into my lap? There we go. That's a cat. So that's the end of this video. This is African American History Month. So I have no idea where this is being placed. This is the end of August. It's the end of August. I feel like I'm behind on my books, but nonetheless, fantastic introduction to a great woman, Josephine Baker, a fantastic entertainer on how it took her until her 60s to feel accepted in the U.S. She was also a spy and helped and entertained troops during World War II. And then tried to show the world that that people can live together of all colors and races without hate. So, and that led to poverty. That's a different story. But that's that's a further look into her history that I would definitely recommend. I will see maybe next year I will cover a little bit more of Josephine Baker. So that is it for this review. If you like what you see, be sure to like and subscribe. Obviously, this is African American History Month, so I'm covering that. I have a few stacks of longer books that still need to be read for this month, for that month. I covered some interesting hobbies last month. You can check those out. Next month, I'm covering women's history. So this is actually probably, I'm guessing this is the very end. This might actually be in March because it crosses over. And February is very, very short, and I probably wanted 4 books. So I'm guessing you guys are reading this actually in March. So along with Women's History Month. So that's, this is my trip over. Next month, I'm doing the Titanic. Then I'm doing Asian History Month. Then, and that's in May. June, I'm covering Ellis Island and Eastern immigration. I'm focusing on Angel Island in May. That's the that was the immigration station in San Francisco Harbor. So that was from the Asian, where you get a lot of the Japanese and the Chinese coming in. So we're looking at Asian history there, and that's, again, that's May. And then we're doing Ellis Island in June. July, I think I'm covering food. And then I think it's August that I'm covering women inventors. Those two can be switched. I'm not off the top of my head. September, I'm doing a deep dive into Beauty and the Beast. You want to have an idea of what the heck I'm going to do, look at my Cinderella playlist, because I did a deep dive into her a year or 2 ago. And this is going to be very much similar, where I'm looking at the source material, the original story, both Disney live action, which I've seen way too many times because my kid's obsessed with the live action, and my preference, which of course is the animated version of Beauty and the Beast. And I think I'm covering a few other things, Beauty and the Beast wise, and different stories. Then I'm covering Space in October, the history, Diwali, which is a Hindu festival in November, and then I'm doing Mysteries in December. The Animorphs series and the Bears of Ice by Catherine Lasky. You can check those out. Those are done. By the time you read this, I should be doing Anne of Green Gables. Boxcar Children should be incoming, and then the Wings of Fire series is going to end off the rest of the year. So, like and subscribe. Leave a positive comment if you have one. Look forward to more reviews, and check out what I got. Thank you.